Arrow Video is back with yet another film from the Universal Motion Picture Vault. This is from 1972, starring Bruce Dern, the first film directed by Douglas Trumbull, who was known for special effects at the time on 2001: A Space Odyssey. This film is Silent Running. This is a movie I remember seeing on like the CBS late movie back in the late 80s on a little TV in my bedroom and really enjoying and thinking it was really sad because of course it is. It's a 70s movie. Of course it's got a downer ending. Not to give anything away. Basically, this film is set in space in a future where Earth is polluted to the point where there are no more forests, there is no more wildlife, and these three domes on this international cargo space station spaceship. These three giant domes have what's left of the Earth's forests and animals and plants, and Dern is the botanist who is keeping that stuff alive out in space just so that it exists somewhere. And otherwise, it's a commercial craft. It's got like American Airlines logos, and the cargo bay, there's all kinds of, brand name logos for things that are being shipped. I don't know what they're doing in space necessarily, but they're out there in space. And his co-inhabitants of the spaceship are these they kind of bully him. They don't think his stuff is important. They run these little weird motorized buggies over the grass and over the things in his domes while they're racing around and just kind of being boneheads. And at some point, the word comes back that something has happened or their mission is over, and they need to report back to Earth. And everybody except Dern is excited because he doesn't want to go back to that planet that's all polluted. He wants to stay with his animals and his little robot helpers and his beautiful pacifist nature domes. And the word is given back to nuke them, basically, to set them off into space and detonate them because they're dead weight. They're not important to the company that owns everything, and come back home. So Dern goes a little crazy. Passionate, crazy, a man of principles, a lunatic, you make your judgment there. But Dern doesn't want to go back home and refuses to let them eradicate what's left of nature on Earth. And he takes matter into his own hands. And he takes violent matters into his own hands. And then the movie becomes, what happens to this guy out in space, nearing the rings of Saturn as he's alone in space with a couple of robot helpers and a bunch of trees. It's very 70s. It's very ecocentric, somber, really. You have a soundtrack that's all Joan Baez singing songs throughout, and they're all these really kind of sad, wistful songs. And that's what I remember from being a kid watching this movie, is that it really had a sad tone to it overall. But it's really well done. They shot this, I learned from the voluminous extras, they shot this on an aircraft carrier, and they did what they could to make it look like a spaceship, and they did a really good job. A lot of model work in this transfer, which is really good. Sometimes they do look like models. I mean, we know they're not really spaceships, but they do look a little like models at times. But otherwise, it's really good special effects. And it's a really good performance by Dern as a guy that you may or may not be sympathetic with. You may or may not think he's kind of crazy, but he's the only guy you got for the whole thing. So the extras, when we get to the extras, the film looks and sounds phenomenal. Again, the best it's ever looked on video. The extras are ported over from previous versions plus more, so you get two commentaries. You get a commentary with some historians that's brand new. You get an archival commentary with Douglas Trumbull, the director, and Bruce Dern that was done, I think, in around 2000 maybe. And then you have even vintage documentaries that were done in the early 70s. So you have a lot that goes into you find out a lot about the making of Silent Running, where the idea came from. There's a really cool extra where you get somebody reading sections of the script, the first draft that had changed, accompanied with some graphic depictions of these scenes as they originally were written, which is interesting, and you get a sense of what the movie was intended to be, which was somewhat different from what it turned out to be. So I found the package really, really good. It's a solid film. It doesn't get talked about quite as much as later sci-fi, because sci-fi would change about 5 years later with Star Wars, and it became more about space battles and lasers and things going boom in space than it was about thinking and thought and deeper meanings. Some of those still came out. There's a movie called Moon that's excellent with Sam Rockwell that was very, I think, influenced by Silent Running. Certainly check that out. But at any rate, Silent Running is out now in a really nice collection from Arrow Video and on Blu-ray.